like one of these for Christmas? But if you have one of these, they probably want one of these.
Hello there.
So, clever old Tiney have put it all together
First
for a remarkable early learning adventure
That's great.
at a remarkably low price. And the Tiney Early Learner System has an Intel Celeron processor. See it all together at your local Tiney showroom. The best things this Christmas come in tiny packages.
Hello, and I hope you enjoyed that blast from the past into a bit of late 90s British television advertising. The company there, Tiney Computers, was a big player back in the late 90s, and like when I first got into PCs in the late 80s, it was a pretty niche thing, but then everything exploded and suddenly everybody I knew was buying PCs sort of from the mid-90s onwards. And in the UK, if you didn't buy a Dell or a Gateway, the chances are you'd be buying a Tiney or maybe another company called Time, who are another big sort of family-orientated PC manufacturer. I believe that Tiney went into administration at some point and they were actually bought out by Time before all of these sort of local companies folded as the PC market began to fade away. So here we have a time machine similar to the one that we've just seen in the advert, except this one doesn't contain a Celeron. It contains a Pentium III 450, and that's what we're going to take a look at today. So it's a fairly average looking beige box from the late 90s, nothing really exciting on the front. It's got one of those little doors that you open to reveal the drive bays. Inside there's a DVD-ROM, you've got your usual 3.5-inch floppy on the front, and somebody's also installed a CD burner on this machine, which I guess was when they were still a sort of fairly niche and possibly expensive thing to have. And on the back, we've got the usual kind of thing. Also, on the I/O panel, we've got a couple of USB ports there, a couple of serial ports, we've got a joystick port, a printer port, and a selection of expansion cards installed on this machine, so hopefully there'll be something interesting in there. Ooh, it's exciting. It's like Christmas opening one of these things. You just no idea what you're going to find inside. I couldn't really find much information on this thing on the internet, so curious to see what's in there. Wow, yeah, that's a lot of dust. I even think there's some components in there underneath all of that cack. So now to get the cards out, which is going to be the most exciting thing, I think. The first thing out of here is a Realtek RTL8139C Ethernet adapter. It's a handy thing, going to be networking my PCs together in the retro room to access drivers and things easily, so handy to have that in there. And the next thing out is the obligatory crappy fax modem, which I'll probably not be using, but I'll leave it in there anyway. And then this, I'm curious about this. It looked a bit like a sort of TV tuner card when I first had a look, but now that I've got it out, I can see there's a chip on there, BT848AKPF, and this turns out, manufactured by Connexent, is a video capture device, so I think it'll be fun to have a little bit of a play around with this in the future. And then finally, the graphics card, which I was hoping would be something decent. Look this up. I think it's a 16 megabyte NVIDIA Riva TNT, which is good because I don't have one of those, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Couldn't find any manufacturing information about who made it or anything, but I guess it came with the machine. I thought about taking the motherboard out, but really, I didn't think it needed it. It was just dust. There's no real dirt or grime or anything on here. And the good thing about these tower cases is because the motherboard's standing upright, there aren't actually that many horizontal surfaces for stuff to land on. So most of the stuff was just settled at the bottom of the case. So I wiped it off with a damp cloth, and I'm just going to have a go over the motherboard with an anti-static brush to get rid of all of the other loose stuff on there. The cards themselves were the biggest dust trap in this thing because they're all sticking out against the motherboard horizontally, so the back of all of these was coated with dust, so quite a lot of crap to sweep off these with the brush, and then a little wipe with a bit of IPA, and all looking nice and shiny. Everything on the inside's looking okay now, so clean the case, I guess. The front pops off and there was some dust and crap around the drive bays, so I gave that a bit of a clean too. And that's it. Not much to do apart from put the thing back together again now in its newly clean state, and then we'll fire it up and have a little look at what's on this hard drive. got there in the end, but it took an absolute eon for this thing to boot up, and there just seems to be tons and tons of crappy bloatware on the machine. There's all sorts of weird icons that look like they're all sorts of gimmicky stuff installed on there. Looking at the stuff that's on here, something to do with wind farms, so I guess that this may have had a career in some kind of clean energy business maybe. There's a couple of games on here, Railroad Tycoon and Railroad Tycoon 2. Unfortunately, trying to run either of them just gives an error. It doesn't even ask for the CD, because I do actually have the CD, at least for Railroad Tycoon 2. But no, these are corrupt installations, but there is a lot of not good stuff going on with this machine, so I think it definitely needs wiping and a full reinstall of Windows 98. So on the software front, this thing did actually come with a little bag of goodies to go with it, so more exciting stuff to look at here. There's all sorts of books and CDs in here, so let's take a look and see what we've got. It's really nice when you get little bundles of stuff like this. It kind of gives you a little picture of the life of the computer, and you get so many machines now that just don't have any software or anything with them, and you just end up just installing vanilla Windows on them. So it's nice to have all of this stuff to go through. Just get it all out on the bench, and then we'll take a look at them one piece at a time. So the first thing up is all the documentation and software that goes with that CD writer that we looked at the beginning. It's an HP CD writer. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to having a play with this, because back then I couldn't afford a CD writer, and it wasn't just a case of right-clicking and saying burn to disk the way it is now with Windows 10. You needed to have special software to do it. I remember things like Nero and things being around at the time, the most common CD burning stuff, which came with a lot of packages of computers at the time, but this thing, I'm guessing, has the things that it needs on the disk. There's some disk printing software on here as well, so it'd be quite fun to have a play around with this and see how much of this I can get up and running. So next up we've got a manual for a monitor, and I did actually get the monitor with the computer. Model number of this monitor, here's a photograph of it, is 710BN, and with a bit of googling, this appears to have been made by Daewoo. This particular monitor that I got with the machine is not branded Tiney, which seems a bit strange, but from what I can gather, this model was used by Tiney with these machines, so I guess there's some reason, shortage of branded ones or something like that, or a replacement is a reason why this one came unbranded. Unfortunately, the stand is broken and didn't come with it, so it just sits flat on its base. But this isn't the primary monitor I'll be using with this machine. I've got another Hewlett-Packard CRT that I use for most of my retro machines through a VGA switch, so this one will be going into storage as a reserve in case anything ever happens to that one. On the software side, we've got the original Windows 98 user guide that must have come with the machine. Next, there's a Norton Internet Security Disk, Norton Internet Security 2003, so this will not have been original since the machine came out in 1999. The Windows 98 starts here disk, still sealed. Nobody ever looks at these things. Who needs instructions? And then a Lotus Smart Suite 97 disk, which looks like it came free off the front of a magazine. So unfortunately, no system disks there. And then we've got the Hewlett-Packard disks that came with the CD writer that I was talking about earlier, so it's going to be fun to have a bit of a play around with that, just to remember what it was like, or experience what it was like burning CDs back in the day. Next we've got a Barclays Online Banking CD. I don't think I'll be using that somehow. Next we've got a copy of IBM Via Voice, which might be interesting. It says, "You talk, it types." So yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, but that'll be fun to have a play around with too. And now the thing I think I'm most excited about is it actually came with the original little user guide folder thing that it came with back in the day. So yeah, this is cool. Let's have a little flick through this. It's nice because it shows you what originally came with the machine, so if you want to be a bit nerdy, and I probably will, I'll try and track some of this down on eBay and try and get it as complete as possible. So this bit's the stuff that Tiney were probably famous for, helping computer illiterate people get up and running, like showing you where to plug your mouse in and stuff like that. all in a nice little chapter called Let's Get Going. So yeah, that's cool. Now let's sort out that printer. I would if I could, but I haven't got one, so no. So now everything's plugged in, we can go ahead and deal with the software. So yeah, just like I guess that first part of the guide was connecting everything together, and now it's just going to walk you through getting up and running on Windows. There's a section on hardware, so they're mentioning the Epson printer that I guess some models must have come with, which didn't come with mine. And then there's a Genius joystick, and I've seen these on eBay, so I'll have to get one. And then there's this hotkey keyboard, and I do actually have this. This came with it with the Microsoft Telemouse, which I think were the original things. Don't know who made this keyboard, but it's just got a few sort of hotkeys at the top for connecting to the internet and stuff like that. Then more stuff on setting up software, which I guess is for fax software and webcam software and stuff like that. Hey, and here's Barney, the talking purple dinosaur. Everybody knew who he was back in the 90s, and we saw him in that advert that was at the beginning of the video. So yeah, I guess there was a certain package that was aimed at families with young children, and if you got one of those, you got Barney the purple dinosaur with it. And it looks like it came with one of those mad-looking quick-shot flight wheel things, steering wheel things. I've seen those on eBay, might have to get one now. More stuff about general setup and help. And look at this, £40 worth of what I imagine was mostly useless free software if you could persuade one of your friends to buy a tiny computer too. What more could you ask for? So it's a bit disappointing that the system disk wasn't in there, but luckily and coincidentally on eBay a system disk for this kind of machine popped up. So it's correct in every way for this machine, except it doesn't have the graphics driver for the Riva TNT. It has a lot of graphics drivers for various Voodoo cards and things like that, which I guess were other options you could have. But I feel pleased I've got this now, and I feel I've got everything I need to get this thing restored to its original state. Having the system disks made restoring this machine a breeze. It's nice not to have to go trawling around the internet looking for drivers and things like I usually do. So yeah, this was pretty quick and easy this time. Drivers seem to have mostly gone on okay apart from the Ethernet, so I'll probably have to go off and find the Realtek driver for that on the CD. The Sound Blaster is installed. This is actually a creative chip that's on board the motherboard, and the motherboard itself is a Intel 440ZX motherboard, which is a cut down version of the Intel 440BX chipset. It only has 2 RAM slots instead of the 4 that you find on the BX, meaning that this machine can only take a maximum of 512 megabytes of RAM, and I think there was 128 megabytes already installed when I got it, so I'll probably put some more RAM in there. The Sound Blaster chip is an ES1373, so an Ensoniq chip. This is after Creative bought Ensoniq out. I think it's the same chip that's on the Sound Blaster 16 PCI card. Doesn't have any AdLib or OPL support. Has its own wavetable sample set. So it's mostly a kind of Windows card. Maybe not very good for DOS games, but I won't be playing many of those on this machine because I have better machines for playing my DOS stuff on. And the video capture card's there as well, so have a bit of a play around with that at some point. Sort out this missing Ethernet driver. I'm not quite sure why that didn't install, because the driver was there on the tiny system disk. For some reason it just didn't seem to be able to find it, so just manually browsing to that, sorted that out, and then I have to load the graphics card for the Riva TNT. I knew I'd have to do this because that tiny disk I got hold of doesn't have any NVIDIA drivers on it, so I've just got the NVIDIA reference drivers for the TNT from the Vogon's website, and we'll just pop those on, and then I think we'll be ready to rock. It should be a nice clean installed system. While I've been messing about with this thing, it's been rocking around like it's been a real pain in the ass, and it was starting to really piss me off, so turn it upside down. It's only got 2 feet on one side, so we'll put some nice shiny new black rubber feet on it. So there we have it, clean, fully installed and ready to rock. This is going to fill in a gap in my machine collection for a turn of the Millennium gaming rig. It's probably Pentium III is about as late as I want to go. It's probably the most recent thing that I regard as retro. I think things after that kind of started a trend that we're still seeing now, but this is kind of the very end of the kind of innovation that went on through the 90s from the late 80s. I'll probably get another machine after this, a more recent one, maybe up to the 1 gigahertz mark, either a later, faster Pentium III or maybe an early Athlon, just to do a bit more of that early 2000s gaming. But this will be as recent as my retro collection gets, I think. All that remains now is to put on a game and see how it looks. And selecting something that I haven't played for 15 years here, so it'll probably show. This is Need for Speed Porsche 2000. It's a good game. I enjoyed playing this back in the day, so let's see how it performs here. I love watching these intros back then, the sort of the rave soundtracks used to get on everything. It sort of really captures that time, I think. Well, the intro looks cool, so now let's see what the game looks like.
2, 1, go!
So yeah, not really sure what I was going to get here because I've never really played on a Riva TNT before, I don't think, but it looks okay and it feels smooth, so yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. I've got all the detail cranked up to maximum on here, and this is a period correct game because I think it came out in 2000 and this machine was released in 1999, and yeah, it looks pretty cool and I'm pretty pleased with it. So yeah, I'm happy that I've now got this Turn of the Millennium gaming rig, and I'm looking forward to playing a lot more games on it in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video if you watched it, and if you would consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing, that would be great also, and hopefully I'll see you next time on the channel. Bye.